everybody, this is the Drinking and welcome to my reaction video to another reading in the month of Macabre. I think there's only a couple more in these, I'm not too sure, but from what I can tell, there's more being worked on for November, so yeah. But this is The Legend of Inky Hearts, and it's a story about an OC, so clearly I'm going into this completely blind. There's nothing to get from the name, there's nothing I know about this OC. It's an OC, so I don't know anything. Frankly, I mean, it's not something I can just look into, so it is an original story, so that is really exciting, that is really cool, so I am looking forward to it. Let's just go ahead and get straight into it, just to see what it's all about. 3, 2, 1. Okay. And the Resident Evil style intro once again. Also, I apologize for the resolution of the video. I don't know if it's the actual video, or whether it's just the capture of the video that I got. Either way, I apologize. Doesn't really matter, but, you know. So I wonder where this is going to turn into a Grimdark.
Inky Hearts was a unique Earth pony that was born with a cutie.
Also, the name Inky Hearts just makes me think of Splatoon for some reason, if you guys haven't played that game. I don't know, I've been playing that a lot more recently, so...
Properties that would become the terror of the small town of Povania when Inky would grow into a much more mature cult. Even though Inky was born with an unusual property, his mother, Sapphire Hearts, that was a medicine mare to the poor ponies of the town, loved her son more than anything. Early life for Inky was hard, due to his personality being much different from your usual cult. Inky didn't have any brothers or sisters, so due to him having no pony to understand him for who he was, except his mother, he took a liking to a large library within the home. Books were like a friend to Inky, seeing any other Philly or cult looked at him as unusual or strange. Sapphire embraced her son's interest in reading, even though the books he was reading were reading level 6, something that only ponies the ages of 14 to 16 years old could read. Inky was only 2 years of age, so for a 2-year-old to be reading something so advanced was both unusual yet impressive to Sapphire, leading her to giving Inky her favorite story as a filly as a gift to the young cult. The story was of a ruined society run by a corrupted force, but within the ruined society, a young mare, along with her fellow rebels, fight against the corrupted force. To avoid any sort of inappropriate content, she marked the only certain areas for Inky to read. Inky read the book in no time, and to preserve the one book that both...
Okay, so obviously it sounds like Inky is a very smart pony.
Inky kept the book within an...
A very smart cult, very, very intelligent anyway. High reading level, all that sort of stuff. And also they talked about religion earlier on, no religious ponies. It is weird to hear about religion in Equestria because we don't know too much about it anyway. I don't even know if there is religion in Equestria because... Is there even a god in Equestria?
She was too drunk that night to even remember what the cult...
It's like with the last Grimdark that I did by this guy, Silent Killers. It was like talking about God a lot, so there is that.
In one of the rooms outside of the bar. Although she wished that she could find out more about her son's reasons, at the same time, she didn't care. She loved her son and found his properties as gifts. Much had not changed over the years, and even Sapphire had begun to wonder if Inky's gifts were only a fluke due to all the alcohol she had consumed the night of her impregnation. However, she couldn't ignore Inky's ability to read books beyond a normal 2-year-old's level, so for his 3rd birthday, Sapphire gave Inky a large amount of...
Okay, so Inky is the Einstein of all ponies.
Most 3-year-olds would find this gift as boring, but Inky loved his gift, and within a week had already written a short story. Sapphire decided to read her son's first attempt at a story, and was shocked.
I'm sure there's more relatable geniuses, but Einstein's just the first one that comes to mind, I'm sure, to anyone.
Police force in the town. Sapphire decided to take her son's work to the local editor of the town, but once she mentioned that the story was written by her son, the work was immediately rejected, resulting in gossip and eventually Sapphire losing her job. The impact of losing her job as a medicine mare was massive for Sapphire, and despite his age, Inky did his best to comfort his mother in her time of need.
Also, because it's called The Legend of Inky Hearts, I'm presuming something's going to happen and he's going to be seen as some sort of hero, maybe?
Would eventually be evicted from her home.
I don't know,
and lose her
but it does sort of give that impression.
All of this led to one of the first unexplained events within Povania. That night, Inky wrote a small note on some parchment before going to bed. The note stated the following: Mom is hurt. Mom needs help. Please, some pony help us. I wish me Mom had her job back, and that whoever took her job away could feel the same pain as we feel right now. It was that night that Carl Hoofston was killed in his own office, and the strange thing about the entire situation was that no evidence of his killer could be found. It was as if he had just died of natural cause. Another chilling fact was that Carl Hoofston was Sapphire's boss that had fired her from her occupation. It was as if everything that Inky had wrote on the parchment that night had come true. Not long after, Sapphire regained her job.
Okay, so he also has some kind of power, maybe?
And the killer for Carl Hoofston was never found. And immediately...
Okay, so we have some sort of cool little murder mystery here. I like it.
And his life, along with Sapphire's, returned to normal, and remained the same until Inky's 16th birthday, where things changed forever. The day
Is
was
Inky
just
like
until a near-death experience
devil kid?
occurred in the library. While reading a book in peace, Sapphire was trying to obtain a book from one of the top shelves. As if he could sense it, Inky turned his attention from his book to his mother, who was struggling to obtain the book. Everything was fine, until one of the steps of the wooden ladder snapped in two, and Sapphire had lost her balance. Normally, Sapphire would have fallen nearly 20 feet to her death, but something strange happened with Inky. Out of instinct, Inky was able to grab his mother with some sort of invisible force, seconds before she would have collapsed. Inky lowered his mother safe to the ground, and immediately, a new question aroused. How did Inky manage to save her? After hours of searching the library,
telekinesis, supernatural powers. I'm already interested.
What Inky had just performed. It was a rare talent known as telekinesis, where an
there you go.
is able to grab things using their mind. The talent requires severe concentration, yet Inky managed to do it out of instinct and predict it moments before it even happened. Sapphire didn't dare go to any pony for answers, due to witchcraft being a death sentence within the town, and such acts could possibly count as an act of witchcraft. So Inky's talent was kept secret. Sapphire didn't want to take any chance of her son being caught, so Inky...
I frankly only know about telekinesis because it's a thing in regular show apparently now. I don't know.
For 2 agonizing years, Inky's telekinesis grew more severe, managing to lift objects 1,000 times heavier than Inky himself. It almost seemed helpless, until one day, the telekinesis just stopped, and things finally started to return to normal. Sapphire wanted to let it go.
I don't know, I'd freaking love to have telekinesis. I mean,
talent
that sounds awesome, to be able to move things with your mind.
She had to find out who she had
That'd be
slept
so cool.
with that night. Sapphire searched up and down for who could have possibly been the cold that she had slept with, but after 3 years of searching, she gave up and returned to caring for Inky. Inky's telekinesis had not occurred for 3 years, so she decided to move on, and everything seemed fine, until she received a knock.
Not for long, though.
One grim night. The night when Inky's true colors were finally shown. It was an unexpected visit by the police, claiming that they had come to take Inky from Sapphire due to being accused of witchcraft. As any mother would have done,
witchcraft?
Sapphire refused.
This must have been old then. This must have been set. This must be set way in the past. I don't know if equestrian time is like our time, but if it is, then it must have been really way in the past, like the 1500s, right? That is if time is the same. We're still not 100% sure what time is in Equestria.
only to find her being violated by the
Or how it's measured.
Sapphire was screaming and crying for the guard to stop, but he only continued to violate her. The sight petrified Inky, causing his anger to immediately peak and his inner rage to finally show. Angry, Inky's eyes began to illuminate an aura of green fire as he flipped open the pages of his short story and manifested a monstrous creature from within the story. The police force could not believe what they were seeing, as Inky used his telekinesis to lock the front door, along with all the other windows and doors within the home. All the locks were sealed, and the inconsiderate crooks were trapped. Inky freed his grasp from the monster and sent the creature after the crooks. The result was nothing but an echo of screams and blood splatter along the walls as the crooks were ripped to shreds by the creature. When Inky came out of his anger, he had no idea of what had just happened, until his dying mother revealed the truth in her dying breaths. Inky was disgusted with himself.
Okay, so he killed his mother.
Only as a murderer and a monster.
Yeah, that's kind of makes sense.
Ever again, and as a result, remained within his home for most of his life. With his mother gone,
Damn.
He was alone with no pony to help him, no pony to turn to, except himself. For years, Inky remained locked away in his home, receiving his resources from outside contacts.
Okay.
Preventing himself from ever performing such horrid acts beyond his control ever again.
What outside contacts exactly?
In the library or in his study.
I'm actually intrigued to know.
Reading one book each day. Inky never needed education due to his books being his teacher, and by age 10 had the mind of a scholar. As for what had happened the night his power was shown, word spread around the small town, and as a result, no pony dared to ever approach Mr. Inky's estate. Only if you were an idiot looking for a death wish did any pony ever step a hoof near Inky's estate. Most kept their distance and never dared to disturb Mr. Inky. That was, until a young colt of an abusive family took that chance. The young Scottish colt named Dipper wanted to escape his abusive family.
Dipper,
So
I don't know if
dare.
that was intentional.
So immediately,
I honestly don't.
Inky.
But
not in a
that's great.
Inky could see that Dipper had no wrong intentions.
All I'm gonna
Only
think of
wanted
now
to
is just
escape
Gravity
his
Falls.
family.
That's fucking
Dipper
great.
had a stuttering problem with his voice due to years of abuse, and Inky could read Dipper's past.
I mean, a Scottish foal
So, like many
named
others,
Dipper.
he
That is the
invited
best
Dipper
thing ever.
to his home. Dipper wasn't afraid of Inky, so he took the invite with full
No, this is the best pony ever.
seeing
10
it was
out of
better
10.
than going back to his
IGN.
abusive home. In the time that Dipper spent with Inky, each of them discussed their pasts over a spot of tea. Inky understood Dipper's fear toward his family, but Inky told Dipper that if he ever wished to escape the fear that he felt toward his family, he would have to face that fear head on. Dipper agreed to Inky's statement, ending the two's conversation with a hoof shake. But during the hoof shake, something strange happened. As if a miracle were performed, Dipper's stuttering issue was cured instantly, surprising both Inky and Dipper.
I am interested to know
Inky
where he
wasn't
got the
sure
name
what to think
Dipper
of
from, though. I might actually ask him that just
Being a
because
positive one.
I don't think it was
Pushed out of the
intentional, because I
house
know the guy
to
doesn't watch
show
Gravity
fear.
Falls.
After the visit with Dipper, Inky locked up the house once again, afraid if what had just happened had caused him to lose.
Also, did I just
some
hear that
actually
right?
understood
Inky has
him.
healing powers now?
Little did he know that this was his first showing of yet another property he was born with. The ability to heal others of sickness, no matter the severity. However, there were certain qualifications in order for the healing to heal in a positive way. Only if you were pure of heart could you be healed. If you were not pure of heart, the healing process would do the opposite. Inky searched the massive library for any answer to what could
Okay, even
possibly
then, that part
just
there just reminded me of another Gravity Falls
But as
episode
expected,
where, like, Mabel
he
had to prove that she was
absolutely
pure of heart to, like, the
Seeing his
unicorn.
talent was only something
These are not
so
intentional, I am, like,
special.
900% sure.
Despite everything that had happened in the past, Inky was special. Not even the great and wise Inky hearts could piece this mystery together. Just like before, nothing indifferent occurred for years, until his 21st birthday. Inky never did anything special for his day of birth.
I heard that in the background.
He didn't look at his birth as anything special, only a curse. Inky would usually just sit in his study and read a book to pass the time during the accursed day of his birth. The one day he despised, when his mother was murdered before his eyes. However,
yeah, you murdered her, Inky.
Only where he would
deal
pull
with
out
it.
His mother's favorite book from the chest and read one single chapter aloud to himself. He would recite each word as if he were reading to his mother, seeing he knew she was still there, listening to him. It was his way of telling his mother that he still loved her, but Sapphire had taught him that there was life beyond death. Inky never doubted his mother's beliefs, and as a way to carry on her memory, he'd do a specific prayer before reading out of the book, as if to resurrect his mother for a small time. As usual, Inky had begun to perform the prayer, but among the prayer, something strange had begun to happen. Voices, many voices, had begun to spawn in his head. Inky suspected it was just feelies and cults outside of his home, so he checked, only to find that the street
and there was no
was
one there.
Empty, and the voices within his head had begun to increase in numbers and volumes. Inky's first suspicion was that he was
so is he like
mad over what had
the
happened
Sixth
in his
Sense kid? He
past.
can see and hear
Saying he had
ghosts
heard many
now, or he
cases
can
with
just
voices
hear
fallen
ghosts.
to
I don't
madness,
know.
Experience hearing voices
Probably
in their
not,
heads.
but I don't know.
After 2 days of hearing the voices, Inky knew that his first suspicion was not the case. He couldn't sleep, eat, or even read a book due to the numerous voices in his head speaking non-stop. He had almost come to the conclusion of suicide until he found an open opportunity to uncover what was going on in his head. The voices had calmed to a volume low enough for him to finally be able to concentrate long enough to find a solution. Once again, he returned to the library for answers, and even though it took countless hours, Inky found answers in the same book that Sapphire had found to determine Inky's telekinesis. There was only one topic within the book that matched his condition, and turned out to be another rare talent known as telepathy. Telepathy is the ability to read minds, and was the closest thing to Inky's condition.
Okay.
Yet his seemed more severe. He could hear not just one mind, but multiple minds, and it was slowly driving him to madness. He needed to learn how to control.
So is this maybe going to end with Inky's death?
A new curse.
Because it does sound like this is going through the entire life of like this Inky Hearts.
10 years.
Which is really cool. This is a really awesome in-depth backstory to an OC, which I'm really enjoying.
Light would be the best decision he ever made in his life of solitude and darkness. The day that Mr. Inky stepped outside of his home was the day that every pony in Povania was silent in awe and in fear. No pony did in terror approach the hooded Inky Hearts, having heard the tales of how he was able to manifest creatures from the pages of any storybook or scripture forged in the history of Equestria. A tale that was both true and false. Inky could only manifest creatures from the stories he wrote, and nothing more. Every pony thought otherwise, but it didn't bother Inky, because ever since he was born, every pony feared him. It was early winter, meaning most Pegasi were busy in the sky. But just to show their hate toward Inky, one of the Pegasi triggered a snowstorm cloud, causing snow to fall down upon Inky's hooded head. From the sky, the Pegasi laughed ignorantly, mocking Inky. But Inky could care less. He had more important matters to attend to, and knew it was going to be hard to attend the matters, considering his reputation among the town. Within the darker parts of the small town, in underground colonies, Inky had learned of a colony where more hybrid ponies lived, and at a heavy cost, you could obtain answers to things beyond any library's limits. However, where he was going was very uncharted territory, and if he wished to return from the depths of hell alive, he'd have to play his cards right. The uncharted colonies were located in an area of Povania that had been abandoned for centuries, before Povania was even given.
Okay, also I've noticed that this isn't... I don't know if it is set in Equestria, but it's set in an entirely different place than, like, Ponyville. Povania.
Nobody didn't dare approach Inky once they saw his
which is
key
pretty
mark
cool.
of a black heart and a golden quill. Every pony, even the most twisted kind, knew of
Which
his
is
true
exactly
key.
what's on the screen.
If you saw him, it'd be best to keep your distance. The legend of Mr. Inky was the most known tale within Povania, and there was no lies to his legend. Inky seeked out a witch doctor pony within the area, and found him within a darker area. The cost for his answers was 1,000 bits, but Inky had a better action of payment in mind. For the first time in over 10 years, he used his telekinesis to persuade the witch doctor otherwise, and quickly managed to. The answer to Inky controlling his telepathy was something simple, but would take years of it to finally control his telepathy fully. 1 hour of meditation and concentration would help to train Inky's mind to expel the voices and use his telepathy only when it was a necessity. The witch doctor attempted to bribe
Okay, so now
Inky
Inky's
into a
going
much
to
simpler
train
solution
to
by casting
basically
a dark
control his
spell on
telepathy
him.
then, and his
But
telekinesis.
Inky knew otherwise, and quickly exited the colony back to his home in the town. Inky had no knowledge of meditation, nor how to perform it, so for 2 more years, he had to deal with the voices in his head more and more. He was so close to ending his suffering, until one day, a soft knock came at the door of his home. A sound he had not heard ever
Please
since
be
the
Dipper.
night of his mother's death. Inky hesitated to answer,
Okay, no.
but something told him that he needed to answer the door. This was his real
Maybe the
answer to
police
his
again?
problems. Sapphire had told Inky not to trust any pony ever again in her dying breaths. But for some reason, he decided to go against his mother's words, and answered the door. Within the large doorway was a unicorn mare with chocolate brown fur, sky blue eyes, and a golden mane. The sight of her made Inky feel strange, a feeling he had not ever felt before in his entire life. What was
Sister,
this strange
maybe?
feeling that he felt? Why was he feeling it? And more importantly, who was this mare? He had seen every pony in the town, seeing it was a small town with a population of only 300. But this mare was new. He had never seen her before in the town.
I don't know, 300 doesn't sound like that small of a
Inky
number.
questioned the mare, asking who she was, and why she had come here. The mare responded in a sweet-toned voice, saying that her name was Sugarbloom, and she had come to talk to him. Inky wanted to just slam the door, but for some reason, this mare did not seem like she had any wrong intentions, and something about her just seemed different, but in a good way. Inky invited Sugarbloom into his home, and immediately directed her to his study, struggling to concentrate with the voices in his head. Within the study, Inky offered a cup of tea to Sugarbloom, which she accepted. It wasn't until Inky attempted to pour the tea that Sugarbloom could see that Inky was struggling with something, which she quickly caught and questioned Inky about. Inky responded saying that he was fine, but Sugarbloom knew otherwise. Inky continued to be stubborn, and as a result, between dealing with Sugarbloom's stubbornness and the voices in his head, he passed out. Later on, Inky woke up in his bed, with Sugarbloom next to the bed. He was surprised that he had not been escorted to the local hospital by Sugarbloom, seeing that would normally be the result of some pony passing out unexpectedly. Along the side of the bed, Sugarbloom didn't do anything that Inky had expected some pony to do to some pony like him. She continued to comfort him, immediately bringing back memories of his mother. Inky questioned why she was being so nice to a monster like him, seeing most ponies would normally be laughing at him in his weak state.
Oh, maybe it's like the spirit of his mother
she
then.
had heard the legend from the locals, but knew that the legend was nothing but a bunch of lies, and that he was really just a lonely pony that needed some pony to understand him. She also stated that she could hear the voices within Inky's head.
Oh, where's Dipper in
could
all
feel
of
his
this?
pain for being outcast
I kinda
by
wanna
almost
see
every
Dipper
pony
again.
since the day of his birth. Inky's response to Sugar's words was tears. Tears he had held in for countless years. It was true. He was lonely and didn't have any pony to understand him. He had no pony to go to, no pony to talk to, and if he even dared to talk to any pony, they'd either run or scream. The legend that the civilians of Povania had made up ruined his life, and now he was nothing but an outcast, feared by any pony he dared to even approach. After releasing a burden Inky had carried for so long, Sugar stated to Inky that she could help him in his struggle with his telepathy, due to her having the same ability. Inky was glad that he had entered the door.
Oh, okay, so she has the same ability.
He found a pony that understood him for who he was. He agreed, and as of then, Inky had finally found a mentor in his struggles. However, after 5 years of Sugar tutoring Inky in his struggles with his telepathy, she became his mare friend, and eventually, his wife. It took 4 years before Inky could finally control his telepathy, and in that time, Inky
I do wonder where this is going to turn into a Grimdark, though, because with the way it's going now, it seems like less of a Grimdark story that the Month of Macabre stories are usually, and just more into a normal story about an OC. Just a regular backstory. I mean, I guess the telepathy and the telekinesis are kinda weird, but they're nothing really Grimdarkish, in my opinion, anyway.
Among the town had changed from negative to positive as the years passed, and Inky reattached himself back to society. Inky could say he was actually living a happy life, but not every pony was convinced with Inky's reformation, mainly the police force lead officer, who had never trusted Inky one bit. Inky thought the same, due to the lead officer being the son of the lead officer who had violated and killed his mother that night. As a precaution, Inky kept an eye on the lead officer constantly. On the more positive side of Inky's life, Inky had learned how to use his powers to entertain others, seeing it wasn't common that you get to see objects lifted by the force of a pony's mind, or have some pony be able to read your mind.
But hey, maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe this will be a Grimdark that actually turned out good in the end.
To life, seeing that the last time he had done that, it ended bad. Another reason he didn't.
I mean, hell, like the last 3 that we've read, everyone's died.
He could do it at will.
So
another reason why he had to learn to control.
I guess in the well they didn't die, but you know what I mean.
That Sugar wanted, but Inky didn't know if he dared to even try, and that was a son or a daughter. He had made a good impact on the town, but he didn't want history to repeat itself, and him having a son or daughter with Sugar might arouse unwanted attention from those who didn't like Inky, even after all he had done to show that he was not a monster. Sugar understood her husband's concern, but she wanted a son or daughter very much, and after pleading to Inky for over a year, managed to finally get a yes from Inky. Inky had certain conditions to make sure that there was no chance of any rebels trying any malicious acts during the pregnancy. She would have to remain indoors the entire pregnancy, and a shield spell would be casted upon the property to keep rebels out. Sugar agreed to the conditions, and as promised, not long after, Sugar ended up pregnant. Thus begun Inky's greatest challenge yet. He would have to protect Sugar for 11 months. Plenty of time for many uprisings to rise, along with many other things that would make Inky's challenge more difficult than it already was. Something Inky knew, but was more than determined to negate in the period of 11 months. Within the first week of Sugar's pregnancy, Inky's fears had already begun to manifest. Groups of ponies bearing the mark of an unknown rebellion came in the dead of night, yelling words of hate and reciting a message in a language that Inky recognized as the language of nightmare worshippers. The reciting of the message continued to occur at the peak of midnight for a month, until Inky finally had grown tired of being harassed and took much darker actions against the rebels. Inky had managed to translate the message and immediately recognized it as a curse that originated from equestrian dark lore. If the curse was spoke, it would manifest a demon, which Inky knew would target his growing son or daughter. The act of malevolence.
Okay, now comes the grimdark section of the story.
That he wouldn't stand for such acts. He confronted them one dark night. Before the lead rebel could even speak the curse again, Inky used his telekinesis to snatch hold of the rebel's tongue, and stated that if any of them dared to approach his property ever again, he would rip all their dirty tongues out. Inky's threat had managed to scare the living hell out of the rebels, and not wanting to test Inky, left the property.
I'm sure it did.
Inky's act against the rebels, no disturbances came to Inky or Sugar, which relieved both of them. But Inky knew that just because he had ridden off one group of rebels, didn't mean that more were to come. Strangely, that wasn't the case, which led to Sugar becoming anxious. Seeing nothing bad was occurring anymore, and she wanted to be more active for the baby, Sugar attempted to convince Inky into taking her for a walk. She wanted out of the house. She wanted freedom from the same four walls, even though Inky didn't want to risk it. He could see that Sugar was desperate. Therefore, he agreed to take Sugar for a walk around the town. Inky walked Sugar throughout the entire town, showing her sights.
Oh, is Sugar gonna die? Please don't kill Sugar.
By the locals of the town, and even learning about the history of Povania.
She's probably one of the nicer characters in this.
6-hour walk,
apart from Dipper.
And making friends, which Inky both enjoyed, yet found strange. Something wasn't right, but he kept it to himself, letting Sugar enjoy her time outside of the home. Among the return to the house, Inky could immediately sense something strange, even though it didn't look like the house had been disturbed. The inside of the house was the same, untouched by any pony, so with no other suspicions to go off of, Inky and Sugar settled back in for the evening, until after the front door had shut, a large amount of white powder had begun to engulf the house, and Inky knew that they were in danger. The powder was a powerful substance, burning the eyes of both Inky and Sugar, and causing both of them to immediately feel sleepy. Inky tried to reach Sugar and escape the house, but the powder's effects were very powerful, and before Inky could even attempt to move, he was already on the verge of passing out. Before he did, though, he saw Sugar being attacked by a pair of ponies and forced out of the house. When Inky reawoke from his slumber, the first thing he looked for was Sugar, but she was nowhere to be found. The only thing that could be found was a note placed upon the front door. The note stated, "Bring your payment and we'll let her go." And there wasn't any question to who had taken Sugar. The powder confirmed it.
Is the payment his death?
Level, and already he could.
Because it's almost over and it definitely seems like it's heading in that direction.
But he needed to save Sugar, and he had an idea of what to do to get her back.
Oh, you know, Inky's just gonna go complete Super Saiyan and destroy everyone.
He had visited years before, only to find the witch doctor pony holding Sugar in his grasp with a knife inches from her neck. Inky recognized the blade as a curse blade, and if it punctured flesh, would kill the victim, leaving a curse upon any loved ones. As expected, the witch doctor questioned if Inky had the payment that he had been cheated out of years before. Inky responded with a simple no, but before any damage could be done, Inky proposed a deal of his own. He threatened the witch doctor with the words,
"You know the legend, right? Then you should know what happens if I get too angry, and unless you release her, I'll show you that there's no loss to the legend."
The witch doctor did not believe Inky, and proceeded to attempting to kill Sugar, but was stopped short, as his hoof was violently ripped clean off, seeing Inky had used his telekinesis to do so. The witch doctor demanded that his helpers kill Sugar, but being smart, resisted, knowing Inky's legend. Seeing that his helpers were not budging, the witch doctor tried so hard to land the blade into Sugar's pregnant belly, but failed, as Inky lifted him with his telekinesis and pulled every bit of the witch doctor's unclean body from behind his mask of hlesh. The witch doctor was dissected clean from the inside of his body, revealing his true nature.
Yeah, this got dark really damn fast.
To the surface, only for her to be
well,
with a knife from
about 30 minutes into it, but you know what I mean.
The knife had struck his beloved, and had caused her to collapse to the ground. Inky's anger grew past its limit, illuminating green fire around the eyes, and the monster within himself manifesting into full form once more. Inky slaughtered the surprise attacker, then turned his attention toward the town, manifesting storybook creatures and freeing them to rampage the town that in that time he despised. The creatures pounced through the town, killing any pony that they could find, which luckily for Povania was none. Not even the police force had dared to try and control the situation, showing just how much they cared for their fellow ponies. Among the Povanian civilians, no pony dared to intervene with Inky's creations.
Yeah, the police kind of suck here.
Dipper, the first pony to ever understand Inky, decided to intervene and possibly stop Inky from destroying the town.
Oh hey,
It
Dipper!
didn't take long for Dipper to find Inky, seeing he was levitating 50 feet in the air above the town. The two's meet was nothing less of a conversation.
I knew we'd see him again.
For Dipper, he knew Inky more than most ponies, and was managing to calm Inky to a level where he could regain control. After speaking helpful words, Dipper managed to finally return Inky to normal, returning his creatures back to their stories, and still devastated by the loss of his child. In the gaze of what he had just done, and knowing there was no controlling it, Inky composed a message to Dipper, and before Dipper could say anything in retaliation, Inky left Povania. Inky couldn't go back, not after all he had done. He had turned into a monster in front of his beloved, nearly killed the entire population of Povania, and had brought nothing but horror and dread to the town. He could never go back. He'd never go back. Sugar and her baby survived. She named her son Boldheart, based off of her husband's personality.
Oh good.
Inky's departure from Povania devastated Sugarbloom, and to this day she continues to search for her husband, wanting him to come home, meet their son, and live a happy life with her.
Oh, this got really dark and really sad very fast. It got so real.
Introduced him to within Povania. Even though the events of Inky's final moments in the town were ones of sorrow and fear, every pony in Povania missed seeing Inky's face. Whatever became of Inky himself remains a mystery. All that is known is that there have been sightings of his cutie mark throughout Equestria, even by Celestia and Luna in their time of rising. Where is Inky? That's what most ponies ask after hearing the legend. No pony knows where Inky resides now, but the last sighting of Inky was said to be just outside of Povania, where he met up with his son. This is true, because the last note ever given to Boldhearts still remains framed in the old home.
Dearest Sugarbloom, I'm sorry, but just know that I love you and Boldhearts more than anything in this world. I left to keep you safe from me. If there's anything that I could ever regret, is turning back into a monster, and having either you or our son see me as a monster.
Honestly, one thing I will say is this felt less like a Grimdark and more like an actual real story about a real pony. And honestly, it's starting to feel very real toward the end, especially with all this going down.
I'm afraid I have no intention of ever returning to Povania. Just know that I love you dearly, and that I am currently residing...
To be honest, I incredibly do feel for Inky Hearts at this point. I mean, kind of a dick trying to kill everyone almost, but, you know, he got saved by Dipper. I still can't get over that name, but, Alright then. Well, I don't know what you guys thought of that, but actually, that was very enjoyable, actually. Again, like I said, it felt like a real, very real story about a very real pony, and that was something very enjoyable. One thing I did notice, though, is at the end of the story, they did mention that, he was sighted during Celestia and Luna's time, so I am guessing, and I'm probably right in thinking that this all happened before Celestia and Luna became the princesses. So it was long in the past, it was a long time ago, so, you know. So it makes me wonder if he was sighted when Celestia and Luna were alive, and even after that, he must be old. Either he's very old. I know he's an OC and I'm going completely... I don't know, but he's very old. He seems very old and all that sort of stuff. But overall, this was a very good story. I'm just completely going off topic. But I definitely enjoyed Dipper, and I know that wasn't intentional because I know the guy and I know he doesn't watch Gravity Falls, and it was the same with like the healing powers with he healed Dipper's stuttering. I know this all wasn't intentional because he doesn't watch Gravity Falls, but it was still very cool. Honestly, I would have liked to hear a Dipper talk. That would have been fucking cool. Overall, it was actually a lot of fun. I definitely enjoyed it, and I hope you guys did too. I mean, it felt very awesome to hear it. It was a very different story because, again, it was a backstory to an OC, and it was a very in-depth backstory to an OC, which I very much liked. But again, like I said, he must be a very damn old pony, but I was right in thinking that it was set a long time ago, so there was that. But overall, I really enjoyed it. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.